Welcome everyone, Marcelo is my name. I'm the niche fragrance collector and I'm finishing up my conversation that I've started with all things Alessandro Gaultieri, and in this case here, the Orto Parisi lineup. Now those who might be interested in Nasomatto or Orto Parisi, have a look at the playlist here. You'll see that I've covered the whole range. I'm a self-confessed fanboy of all things Alessandro. I find that he's super artistic. This is now perfumery as art, more than just a beautiful fragrance, which is what they are. Today I'm going to talk about this incredible powerhouse of a fragrance. At first glance, and I did what, if you haven't seen this before, you're doing right now, and that is looking at the clue on this particular fragrance, and instantly you're going, I think it might be a fragrance that has a leather tone to it. The whole Orto Parisi lineup is a tribute to his grandfather. This is a continuation of the Vincenzo Parisi story, and that is that as a young man, early 1900s, Vincenzo was, I guess, sent by his family to the north, so he was from the south. Those who are familiar with what the Italy continent looks like a boot. And Vincenzo Parisi was from Puglia, which is at the heel. And he went to Genoa. And in Genoa, he actually became a shoemaker. And hence why all this connection with leather, this awesome sleeve that's on the bottle, which is completely unique compared to the other Orto Parisis, but I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. I almost feel like this is the last fragrance in this Orto Parisi collection. And I say that because when you think of a book and you think of an old school book, you know, back in the 1600s or something like that, they were all leather bound. And so once the story is written, put a leather bound around that to say, well, here's the book, now you can put it on the shelf. If you look at all the other Orto Parisis, they all look essentially the same. They're in this flask-like, you know, bottle. The inlay is somewhat similar in that it has a unique inlay which is relevant to the actual fragrance. But this inlay here is different. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But it has a leather sleeve. And I think that leather sleeve, in the way I'm interpreting it, is that this is the end of my story about my grandfather. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm making stuff up. I get it. But anyway, why is it so different? Why did Alessandro choose to put a sleeve around this baby here? I did peek. I checked underneath the skirt of this sleeve because I'm like, I wonder if the bottle is the same like all the others. The short answer is yes. So it has the Orto Parisi name, CUOIUM also is written here. Everything looks the same. The difference is that it has this awesome covering, which is the leather. Let's smell this fragrance. Oops. I just gave myself 2 sprays, and I'm about to tell you, spray carefully with this fragrance. To exceed 3, it's at your peril. Now, so when I first smelt this fragrance, I was ready for Orto Parisi. I know what they're like. But I was taken aback. This is a powerhouse. Yes, it's a leather fragrance, but not like you've ever experienced before. It teases you with a beautiful, sweet, almost cordial-like opening. It has a citrus sweetness, which is vibrant, but that goes in a whisper. And what's replaced 15 seconds later is this animalic, leathery tone to the fragrance. As the fragrance then migrates, it goes down into this woody, leathery, smoky sort of place. And the smoky, what I mean by smoky is that it's incense-like. It has a frankincense or some kind of incense component to it. One thing that runs through this fragrance consistently is a fecal-like quality. And you're thinking to yourself, why would anybody in their right mind want to wear something that sounds that intense? Because it's glorious. Because there's a sense of power, there is a sense of centering myself, there is a sense of fortitude and strength in this particular fragrance. The one thing that I love about it is that this is a pure leather fragrance. Unlike other leather fragrances that I have, which are clouded with other elements. They may have like a raspberry note, or there's a floral component to it, or there's some level of spices that come around. This is leather. There's nothing that comes around the corner to bring it down. If anything, it retains it in its raw, animalic, powerful self. You know what's interesting? What is leather? I know that for me, I do love a beautiful leather fragrance. I also know that a lot of my male colleagues love leather perfumes too. But when you really sort of break down, so what is leather as a substance? It's a byproduct of a dead animal, essentially. It's the hide of that animal. And let me tell you now, leather does not smell like that hide. That hide smells of blood, bones, and fecal matter. It is a pungent, repulsive smell. I had an opportunity to film I was doing a job for a corporate, and I was filming in an abattoir. Now, you may have identified that I have a heightened sense of smell. So I do love smelling, I do love perfumes, and I can detect things fairly well. Now, I was now drowning in this incredible, pungent stench, which was these carcasses that were coming through. And I remember at the time, I just was saying to myself, focus on your filming, focus on your composition, focus on what you're doing, try to push out all these other elements. I filmed that morning. I could not eat until late at night. The smell was so repulsive. I mean, and I'm talking about blood, bone, and fecal matter and animal, just this animal sense. So leather does not smell like African leather. No. Leather smells is quite a raw animal smell. Now, this is not that, okay? So this is not the abattoir, but what this is a very rich, very deep, very raw leather animalic fragrance. Alessandro Gaultieri does not reveal the notes that he uses, but one thing that he has identified with these Orto Parisi lineup is that he is using oud. And so I'm going to say that the oud that he is using here is definitely a little bit more fecal leaning. There is a woodiness to it, there is a woody tone in there, but it does have a little bit more fecal qualities to it than I have smelled in the others. Now, he's got one in his lineup called stercus. Stercus means feces in Latin. Stercus is beautiful. I mean, I have a look at this video. I actually called it the sweet smell of poop, because really, for I guess a fecal fragrance, or for a fecal it smells nothing like it. It is divine. That is glorious. Whereas here, this leather here does have a much punchier, animalic, fecal-like quality to it. I love the dry down on this very woody, very sweet, smoky place. And as I mentioned, it's a very grounding fragrance. This is an eternal fragrance. I'm finding that I get 24 hours plus. I've worn it all day, I've gone to bed, put my pajamas on, left my bed, gone to work, come back, put my pajamas on, 24 hours later. It actually has seeped from me across into my clothing. This is a powerful, punchy fragrance. What's interesting though, is that this is not, well, in my opinion, this is not a room filler. So this is not something that after 3 sprays, you're gonna scare people away, where it has this atomic sort of sillage to it. I find that the sillage on this is moderate, and I find that the projection on it is also moderate. So it's not this huge, just fill a room kind of fragrance. It definitely has presence, but not at the level that I was expecting it. Only because of its longevity, of its staying power. I just thought that this was going to be more atomic, but it's not. Actually, it's a very, and I go back to, I do believe that this is a fragrance for you and for your soul. As I mentioned, the bottle is slightly different to all the others in the collection. Other than the sleeve, the actual inlay, there's a symbol in there. And this is the first time I've actually seen another symbol on the bottle. The only other symbol is the eternity symbol on its backside. Now, the triskele symbol is an ancient spiritual symbol. I mean, it dates back to about 5,000 years. I actually found this in a cave, the symbol of these 3 legs that are joined in the center. I know many different cultures utilize this particular symbol. I know I was in Sicily, for instance, and I love their triskele, or their version of it, which is basically the face of a woman and 3 legs coming out. And they do it in ceramic. They're bright, they're beautiful colors, these yellows and blues. It's glorious. Now the triskele, what does it mean? You've heard the saying, luck comes in 3, or 3rd time lucky, or 3 times a charm. Things like things come in 3s. Well, that's the essence of it. You could also talk about that it's a symbol of spirituality. So for those who believe in reincarnation, it's about birth, death, and then the rebirth. For those who believe that the soul is eternal, it's about the soul in that pre-world existence. It's about the soul in this mortal existence, and then it's about the soul in the next evolution once we leave this mortal coil, essentially. It could also be about self. So it's about your mind, your body, and spirit. So the symbolism of 3 is something that is centered, as I mentioned, is centered around spirituality. So the question is, and again with Alessandro, nothing is by chance, everything is by design. He's placed this symbol on there. Yes, it could be the symbol of, because it looks like a shoe. So think of like those anvils where you put a shoe to construct it, you know, to create your leather boot. But it's definitely a triskel. And so therefore, he's referencing the fact that there is some level of spiritual connection. And I have to agree, for me, this is a fragrance for your soul. This is a fragrance that, for me, there's a fortitude in it. It gives me a feeling that I can do it. And honestly, I can do it. I put this fragrance on, calms my mind, it makes me feel a certain level of strength. I do love Orto Parisi. I do love Alessandro, as I mentioned at the very beginning. The man is an artist, and he takes perfumery as an art form. So yes, it's a business, and I'm taking any of that component away from him. I recognize that it's a business for him. It's about generating value for the work that he's doing. But I also know that yes, it's an expression of art, and I really like the way he does it. Thanks everyone. We'll see you guys all on the next episode.